Thank you, Mo, for your amazing music. Let's hear it again for Mo. Can everybody hear me okay? It's all good? All right, thank you. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. It's such an honor to have you here and to have Mo play for us, and we'll get a chance to hear from Mo later this evening. So I wanted to just share a sincere thank you to everybody for being here. And hopefully the live stream, we've been having a couple issues with it. Technology just has a mind of its own, so we'll just have to see if hopefully people are signing on, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to the Leedy Grange for having us here today. I wanted to just share a little bit about myself for those of you that don't know me, which is, I realize, probably just a few of you since I recognize most people out in the audience. My name is Christopher Merideth. I'm the founder and executive editor of Neuro-Education Press. I currently have many different hats that I wear. I work as a university lecturer, but I also have a background going way back to teaching special education, teaching ESL, and all sorts of other different components within education. I wear all these different hats because I just love it. I love doing so many things. I'm also doing professional development out in the field, and I just already made some new connections today. So I'll be traveling, hopefully, with my colleague Analia, who I'll be introducing later today, to do some professional development for them as well. Well, I wanted to start out this evening with a little story about how I first became interested in neuroeducation. And I wanted to share about a 14-year-old girl who I'm going to call Jamie. Now, the first time that I met Jamie, I was working as a paraeducator in a special education classroom, which is essentially a role as an assistant teacher. And part of my job was to help the students that I worked with transition from a very restricted, separate special education school into a very large, comprehensive high school to take general education classes, which was for some of them the first time they had been doing that. And I would actually go to the general education classes with the students and try to help them as they navigated this new landscape. Now, most of the students that I worked with wanted absolutely nothing to do with me, okay? So they never made eye contact with me. They wanted me to sit on the far side, the back of the room, which, you know, made sense, right? Because they were high school students after all, and they didn't want to be embarrassed or singled out. Jamie, however, was different. Jamie always wanted to sit right next to me. And when I say right next to me, it was kind of right butting up to me. It took me a little bit of time, but I soon figured out why. Because as that teacher was lecturing, Jamie would be trying to write down the words, scribbling as fast as she possibly could, filling up just page after page of notes. And if she missed something in the lecture, she would look at me real quick with this panicked expression and be like, well, what do I miss? How do I fill this in? When it came time to do things like partner work or group activities, her body would freeze up in her seat and she would whisper to me, well, what do I do? How do I find a partner? What if no one wants to be my partner? That kind of thing. What if nobody likes me? And as I got to know Jamie a little bit better, I discovered that her mind was just always going. It was riddled with these never-ending questions about how to navigate this new school environment and try to succeed in an environment that we all kind of take for granted, a lot of us, you know. We went through school and we didn't have too many issues. But these questions would just lead to endless stress and anxiety for Jamie And the high school became a very intimidating place for her, unfortunately. Because you see, Jamie is a young woman who identifies as neurodiverse, specifically as an individual with autism. And like many children who are very special and unique, Jamie always wanted to do well in school. She wanted to make friends. She wanted to fit in with her peers. But like many other children who are also unique, her mind and her brain process the world a little bit differently. And so in these academic situations, Jamie had a hard time seeing what learning in school could be like. In social situations, she had a really hard time seeing the intentions of others and what they were trying to communicate. So what does this story have to do with me or to have to do with neuroeducation in general? Well, you see, educators, including myself, we had tried our best to help Jamie over time, just tried everything we could think of. We started with just talking and talking through issues. And when I first started learning about neuroeducation theory, a light bulb kind of went off for me, and I realized, wait, that's just it. The talking by itself about an issue isn't enough for Jamie, because it doesn't allow her and people like her to be able to see what it is that we're actually talking about, right? But wait a second, if talking wasn't enough to enter into Jamie's brain in a meaningful way, well, what else was there to try? It turns out that there actually is a great deal that we can try, and we can actually be doing different things to enter into our children's brains in very meaningful ways, which I'll come back to. And I'm building that suspense, okay, as we start to share this story. Hopefully today, for those here and those watching, I can help inspire to learn more about neuroeducation so we can kind of dip our toes in it if we're new, or to kind of revisit and share our story about neuroeducation, how we got interested in this with the world that's out there, because people really do need to hear about these stories. So in creating Neuro-Education Press, I've taken elements from my whole background in education and all of my career, and I've really tried to use those elements to form an entity that is focused on sharing information about brain-based learning, and also promoting efforts to use this brain-based learning in schools to promote equity and social justice. So tonight, this talk is in part dedicated to Jamie and all that I was able to learn from working with her. Well, that brings us all the way here to today. It's finally here. We've made it. Oh my gosh. For those of you, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh, for those of you that have heard me talk about this for so long, it really feels like, oh my gosh, it's finally here. But I'll be introducing a few folks in just a moment who have helped tremendously along the way. And so for those of you that are a little bit new to this work, a bit of context might be helpful. What do we mean by neuroeducation? Well, we could talk for hours about this, but of course, the short version is that the neuroeducation in Neuro-Education Press refers to one specific academic model that Dr. Ellen Arwood created over the course of 50 plus years of research, which is the Arwood's Neuroeducation Model, or the A&M. And the A&M was created by Dr. Arwood as a way to try to bring together information and literature from three different fields that don't always see eye to eye, which of course is our cognitive psychology, our neuroscience, and language. And so in creating this model, the A&M became something that's both unique in that there's really nothing else like it out there, but it's also accessible for those people willing to give it a try, right? For those of us that have given it a try, we see, oh, wow, this can influence our daily lives. We can use this as our way to view the world and to see things in a new way. When this translation was happening from the theory and the literature into the practice and creating, it followed what's called a synergistic process. And that term might be familiar to some of you, but what that essentially means is that the whole of the knowledge that was created during the synthesis is actually greater than just the sum of those individual pieces, okay? Another way of saying that, it's unique. There's not a way to pull this together without the A&M being the anchor. So the A&M was created because nothing like it really existed. There's other models of brain-based learning out there, sure, but those models leave out certain components, especially the language lens. And what that means is that this story that we tell about human learning is not complete because something's been missing from the equation, and that's what the A&M can do here. During this process, it provided a really natural place to put the neurosemantic language learning theory right in the middle. And I don't have time to go into all of that today, but the short version is that the NSLT is really all about trying to look at human language, that story of learning and human language and functioning in a very different way. Which is why probably some of you have just heard me ask questions over and over again, especially if I visited your classroom, like, well, what does that child's language mean in terms of their functioning in the world? Or what is the function of their behavior? Why are they doing what they're doing? Okay. And those of you who have heard me talk about this know that I can go on for hours and hours, so I'm just going to go quickly through it. As part of this translation from the knowledge about the brain and theory into practice, Dr. Arwood also observed that the vast majority of children, and in fact most of us adults as well, think with a visual learning system, which means that we see movies, pictures, and graphics in our head. Not everybody, but vast majority. So it really would stand to reason then, if the majority of students think and learn in this way, that we could use visual language learning strategies that matched this visual way that children have naturally thought in their minds. So these visual or viconic language methods were born out of this theory about the language and learning. And it's been really used to tremendous success by many of the educators who are here with us today. So we're all here today because of Dr. Arwood, and of course she's going to be speaking in just a moment, and I'm very excited. But she's poured, so much research into this field. Here's an AI version of Dr. Arwood. I think it turned out pretty good, I got a thumbs up. Okay, so the score 1 for the computer. But I bring this up because, along that 50-year journey, Dr. Arwood also created the Apricot Clinic, the Apricot Inc. Clinic, alongside Mabel Brown, who's not here today. And the Apricot Clinic provided one-on-one strategy counseling to many, many different students and helped their parents learn more about learning and the brain. But Apricot also had a book publishing arm to the business. And so over the years, they published more than 25 different books, or more than that, resources. And even today, I just had people coming up to me saying, where can I get this resource, that I haven't seen on the website yet? Are you going to put it on the website? Because these resources are just cherished by educators. I get handwritten letters from all over the country, people saying, can you please mail me an event-based picture? I'm in Nebraska and I can't get them anywhere. So it's because nothing really exists out there, like out in the world today. So where do I fit into this story here? Because it was actually through Apricot Inc. that I was able to publish my first book. And I had just a tremendous time doing this success. I learned so much from Dr. Arwood and Mabel Brown during the process of editing, writing, and having them as colleagues for me was very rewarding. But at some point, Alan and Mabel decided that maybe it was time to retire. I guess maybe they wanted to spend some time with their grandkids or learn how to play golf or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're up to, but that left us with a bit of a problem, right? Because if they retired, who was going to keep publishing these books and these materials that everybody still cherished and wanted to get their hands on, right? And it was out of this necessity to keep these books in print that Neuro-Education Press was born. I could personally relate to how these books were valuable to me as a learner, because they really helped shift my perspective on what was possible within education. So I knew I needed to try to do my part to keep them in print, and I just thought to myself, well, how hard could it be, right? I mean, we've got technology now. I'll just put them on Amazon. We'll do print on demand. That's not going to be too hard, right? Well, instead of boring you with the long version of the story, I'll just say that I've never been more wrong about anything in my life. I had to really kind of learn every little step along the way. And, it looks easy, right? I mean, gosh, there's just a couple things I had to figure out. I won't tell you the long version, but I did actually tell the long version one time to a colleague when I was, kind of creating this company. And I was just going into all these details. I could tell I was really boring her because her eyes were kind of glazing over and she was probably thinking about what she wanted to make for dinner that night or whatever. But I mentioned that because at the end of my story to her, I'll never forget her response, which was she just kind of shrugged, wasn't really too impressed, and said, this is just what adult lifelong learners do, okay? We figure out a way to get done what is most important. And at the time, I thought, wow, oh gosh, a response could be a little more validating, right? I mean, gosh, I spent all this time and effort. I'd like, give me a medal or something here, But I'm very, very glad that she reacted the way that she did because it was a very humbling experience. It was a reminder of why I'm here today, which is for those of us that do this work, we kind of think about ourselves as servant leaders, which is a way of saying that we stay very humble as we try to take this work into all these new directions. It was a very fantastic reminder about what's most important and what got me into neuroeducation in the first place. Well, here I am. Here's my AI version. It's not quite as flattering, I don't think. I look very tired. And my teeth look like big, I don't know, gopher or rabbit teeth or something, but that's okay. In all seriousness, though, Neuro-Education Press was really founded on the observation that you don't need to take my word for it. What we're currently doing in education, we call that the status quo. It's just not really working for all of our kids, okay? The research has been clear about this for a while now. We see students struggling more and more each year to acquire literacy. And we're seeing a rise in antisocial behavior and mental health challenges, and I'm seeing some nods out here from the teachers. We're seeing more segregation by race and socioeconomic status. That's becoming a worse problem in the United States than it ever has been for the last couple generations. So the status quo, it's just not working, right? But the good news is that we can do something a little bit different. I mean, teachers are already trying their best. It's not about trying harder because we know they're pouring their hearts into everything that they do, right? It's about going and looking at things a little bit differently. It's not about working hard. It's about getting more bang for our buck in terms of when we're working this hard, how can we actually enter into the brain in a meaningful way that equates into learning, right? And when I'm talking about the brains, I'm talking about neurobiological processing. I'm not talking about in one ear, out the other. I mean, I have 2 toddlers. I know about the in one ear, out the other routine, okay? They can parrot back things to me, and I know they don't fully understand that, right? That processing, it has to stick in the brain in order for the brain to use it and be able to take it and do something with it. That's what neuroeducation is all about, and it has to kind of marinate in the brain a little bit. I thought maybe we could kind of refer to us as neuromarinators, and then I realized, no, that's probably not going to be a good catchphrase. Let's put that on the trash can, But because the status quo isn't working, we could be empowering our teachers to do more to help our students. We've got quite a few folks here who would agree with that. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at the work samples that are here today because it really is showing a different way of approaching how we look at topics of learning. Well, what do we do at Neuro-Education Press? What's some of the goals and mission? Well, we do want to help emerging authors share their stories. So people that have never written before, that's what I want to help them with, is get their story out there. sharing their lived experiences and telling how did they get here. Through that process, also and always promoting social justice and promoting inclusivity, inclusive practices by trying to increase the awareness of the three different lenses, the learning, the language, and the brain. And neurodiversity is really something that we can celebrate in all different forms of uniqueness in both children and adults. Analia and I will be speaking in just a few weeks about neurodiversity to kind of a different type of crowd, which will be pretty fun, and we're putting that together. So if you want to come join us, please do. And throughout this process, it's about creating a pro-social community. So what does that mean? Well, it's about including everybody and trying to have a space for educators to support one another. Because there are lots of people who are here today and other people who couldn't make it as well, who have just seen these amazing benefits that neuroeducation can do for children. We've also had some kind of life events ourselves to try to navigate around to overcome. We had the Neuro-Education program at University of Portland that was closed down. And I mentioned Apricot Inc. Is closing. So with these developments, I knew that there needed to be a new platform for all of us to be able to share how neuroeducation can add value to the conversation about what is schooling and what is education in the United States. And we need a place where we can share our unique stories. And hopefully by doing so, we can inspire other people. And so hopefully Neuro-Education Press can be that new home, right? We can create a community out of this, and we can have this be the center of that community and help people have access to this knowledge in a way that is accessible for them. And I was thinking the other day, wouldn't this be amazing if this new home could function kind of like a think tank in a way, where together we try to solve and tackle these solutions that have just been challenging for education as work together as a team, because we really are stronger when we put our minds together and work in harmony. But we do have to start somewhere, right? Because before people can know about neuroeducation, before it can spread, they have to figure out what it is, okay? And so it's not just about creating the books, and it's about also doing things with videos, for example, trying to film in your classroom if you're working in a classroom or one-on-one with students, and then using social media to try to share these stories with a wider audience. Speaking of opportunities, so there's a couple great things coming up. We are working very slowly on 2 different new books in the academic series, and those of you who are like, wait, are those actually going to come out? We've been talking about this for years now, but yes, they will come out. We are going to make it. We are going to make it happen. I would love to do a virtual book club series where we've got people from all over the country that can come together and start to do a deeper dive on one of the previous titles, and then at the end have a guest presentation from the author or somebody who's very interested or knowledgeable about that topic. I did create an online course with Dr. Harwood a little while back, and unfortunately that has gone by the wayside, so it's time to create a new one. So if you are an educator, I'll be knocking on your door in your classroom. I would love to film and get some of what you're doing on film so that we can start to show that to the world a little bit more. And of course, we're going to be doing workshops just throughout the year, and those will keep going. The good news is that I'm not just doing this all by myself. We've got everybody here, but as I mentioned, I also am working with Dr. Analia Oliva to create a kind of sister organization to Neuro-Education Press, which is the Neuro Learning and Language Network. So we've got the press, which is kind of focusing on putting out the materials, and then the Neuro Learning and Language Network, which brings together these community of educators to support one another as we go through this really complex process of transformative adult learning, which is just another way of saying it's never finished. We're always transforming, we're always learning. So hopefully Dr. Oliva will have a chance to talk a little bit more about the NLN, as we call it, when we switch into our panel conversation. So the spirit of tonight is really about trying to inspire all of us to work together to try to make the world a slightly better place. I do feel like we could use that right about now, and hopefully with this community of educators that we have, we can start to do that. Well, I would like to end my time with you tonight by returning to my story of working with Jamie and what I learned from her. I had the privilege of working with Jamie for many years, which was very rewarding, and I learned a ton. And here is what I learned. I learned that I could help Jamie to see that school and learning could actually be a positive experience for her by literally drawing out all of those topics that she had not been able to access through just the talk by itself. So that stress and that anxiety that I talked about earlier, we drew all of that out, every topic that we could think of. When the teacher was providing oral instructions and she didn't know what to do, we drew that out, and et cetera, et cetera. Drawing out also stress and how stress gets so big it kind of takes away our mental pictures, and we can't really function anymore. When I started to do this for Jamie, something also clicked for her. It was kind of this like symbiotic process where it was clicking for me at the same time as for her. And really it was this fascinating thing where she, at one point during our sessions, looked at me and said, now I can actually see what stress looks like. Why didn't anybody show me this or tell me this before? Okay. Good question, Jamie. Good question. Why didn't we say this before? Oh, wait, we did say this before. We just didn't show it before, okay? And those are very different things. And hopefully, neuroeducation can help us understand the difference between those two. I also learned that we truly can make schools a better place for kids, especially our students like Jamie, who are a little bit different, a little bit unique. And what it takes is it takes a shift in our perspective about what is possible, okay? When we do that symbiotic back and forth and we put ourselves in the shoes of our students and we kind of look at learning from both directions, we start to see, oh, that's why their brains and minds can't see what it is that we're talking about. We're not providing that visual layers of input for them that in a way that matches. We're not drawing, we're not writing about an idea, we're not making flow charts, the picture dictionaries. And you know what? And in some ways, once we know that, it's a little bit on us, right? Because we can change our instruction in a way that meets that student's needs, okay? And when we do that, we can change the way that education is delivered in school systems pretty much anywhere. We can stop leaving students behind. And oh, by the way, we can also stop blaming those students that we leave behind that they're struggling. We can recognize that it may not be that student, but the school, school systems as a whole that are kind of struggling a little bit. And so that's why I created this tagline, which is simple, which is just brain-based visual education strategies for all. Because these strategies really can create inclusive environments for all of our students. Jamie was the first student that I helped empower using neuroeducation, but certainly was not the last, and I still continue to this day to work with students one-on-one. I've been able to take all of these principles that I've learned in a way that is kind of from this initial experience into shaping a whole different career trajectory that I never imagined or thought I would have. But it is about shifting our perspective about what's possible in education. This pencil sketch actually is something that I found online, but it's kind of a bit uncanny because it looks remarkably like the real Jamie. I just mentioned that because we do keep in touch every once in a while. She's graduated from high school, she's attending community college, and she's living completely on her own. I've had a chance to write about Jamie, and it's just been this very positive experience that has happened. Well, I've shared a little bit about my journey today, but this story that we're all telling is bigger than just me. In other words, it's not really just about me, it's also about all of you that are here today and your journeys about how you've gotten here. I do hope that I can inspire you to share your story with other people. Because if this is going to work and get all of this information out there, we kind of need to work together. And if we work together, we can create that synergy that I was talking about earlier, where we've got the information coming from the books, we've got that combining with the social media and people sharing their stories. And when we do that work together, it truly does become greater than just the sum of the individual parts. It creates something into truly meaningful. We can change our school systems to make them more equitable. And personally, I haven't seen anything come remotely as close to achieving that potential as neuroeducation. And so that's why I continue to put in all of this time and effort, earn those medals, because this work really is unique and the world just deserves to know about it, right? So hopefully, are you in? Have I inspired you? Will you help me make schools a more welcoming place for everyone? Will you help me make the world a better place for the Jamie in your own life? And that's my time for this evening.